Okay. Start going in just a moment. Don, if you just keep a watch, say after about 5 minutes, if anybody shows up after that, don't bother,
Okay.
with it. So
otherwise, yeah, if I recognize the names, I'll let them in.
yeah, great. Yeah, after a while, you get a lot of the same people. And there was another fellow. Let me just see if I can find his name here real quick. That had a bunch of Universal footage. Worked there. That said he was going to try to join us, and I invited him to show the footage in the Q&A section. So let's see. That was probably into the Vintage SoCal group. Just see if I can give you this guy's name. Okay. Oh, wherever it is. Okay, I'd like to get started. Let me come back here. Let me get out of my mail, first of all, so it doesn't go ding, and let me know that people are saying they'd like to get going. Okay. So appreciate everybody joining us. Going to talk about Universal Studios. First of all, just anybody else take the Universal tour over the years?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody ever work on the Universal tour? Oh, Ron. Okay, that's the fellow I was going to say we were going to let in. Oh, great. Okay. When everybody comes in, by the way, you're muted, and when I do the talk here, I'm going to mute folks and then unmute you at the end. For folks that are new, if you have a question, if you put it in chat, I will not see it during the talk, but I'll try to get to it at the end. If there's anything really that's must stop or anything, put it in there. My wife Carol will see it. She'll come running down the hall and tell me. So look forward to it. Yeah, just a little bit of background information. Universal started giving tours way back around 1914. In 1913, a fellow named Carl Limley had bought the studio, and they decided that they would start letting tourists come in. And they started either in 14 or 15. And it was a different sort of tour than we had today. It was basically they set up bleachers, and people could come in and watch the filming of movies, which were all silent films at the time, and mostly Westerns. So they could come in and they could watch. They paid a nickel, and for a nickel you got admission and you got a box lunch, a chicken lunch. So that was very popular. People would come out, watch it, and for the next 20-something years, it worked well. And then sound movies came by, and it didn't work as well because in the days of the silent pictures, the actors evidently really liked it because it was like playing to a live play as opposed to doing just a silent movie. You had the audience cheering the heroes, hissing at the villains, clapping and everything. So sound comes by, and all of a sudden it didn't work because the director would tell everybody quiet, and they would boo the villain and clap at the wrong time or laugh or whatever. So in the 1930s, they stopped doing the tour. Well, years go by, and they get to 1963, and the studio is sold one more time. If you look at the history of Universal, it's had a lot of owners over time. And in 63, it was sold, and they were losing money hand over fist on a whole bunch of reasons. It turns out an accountant was sitting there one day trying to figure out how do you maximize getting people, to make money on this thing. And he realized that the studio commissary was basically only about a quarter utilized. So they went ahead and made the suggestion, why don't we invite people to come here and have lunch, hobnob with the stars? So they started looking, researching the situation, and in 1964, they decided they would sell tours of the studio. And basically, the tour was you came into the commissary, had lunch, and they would take you for a real quick ride around the back lot, show you some of the sets. And they didn't have anything that we had today in terms of the collapsing bridge or any of the attractions. It was really just ride around. But they designed 2 trams, and for those of us with the Disney connection, was interesting. The fellow that designed the first Universal trams was a fellow named Harper Goff. And Harper is probably best known to us Disney guys as the guy that invented or designed the Nautilus and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So he had a very varied career. He did a lot of work over 20th Century Fox, set designer, art director, that sort of thing. But he was the guy that came up with the first trams for Universal. So the tour started in 64. I'm going to start in 65. And let me get going here. So slideshow. Okay, 1 second here. I'm trying to make sure that it will share screen. Okay, share screen. Here we go. Okay, hopefully this will do it. Folks, see a title slide? Okay, great. I was trying to go all the way up to 2000 or so when I actually worked at Universal, and then I realized, as I realized on other weeks, I had a lot more pictures than I thought. So if I went into the years I worked for Universal, we'd be going probably for the dinner time crowd tonight. But we're going to start in 1965, and if you came driving up the Hollywood Freeway, you come along and find a big sign for Universal City. A lot of people don't realize Universal is not, most of it is not within the city of LA. It's in the unincorporated part of the county of Los Angeles. So they've declared themselves their own city. It's not really a city, you know, it doesn't have residents in that, but they would make a big campaign about the honorary mayor of Universal City, that sort of thing. And it gave them a certain extra cachet rather than just saying Universal Studios. So that you'd see this big sign trying to get you to come up and go to the brand new tour. And when you got there, this is how you went in. You parked your car in the commissary parking lot. You walked up to the commissary building. On either side of this building, there are posters, old movie posters that had been put up and laminated up on the wall. And you would just come walking on in. If you were inside, this is what it looked like. Tour bus dropping some folks off. And you're off for a day of the tour. And they had right inside the main area they took in was called Hong Kong Harbor. And again, they had not built this stuff as a movie studio tour. It was all working studio. Let's find a way to put the tourists into it and wander around. So take a couple of boats, put a thing. They had filmed a movie recently that had to be set in Hong Kong, and it was a nice background for it. They also started bringing props in, and they were not just props from 20th Century Fox movies. Here you can see they had a prop from the Ten Commandments, a chariot. And it's interesting because now in today's day and age, everything would be behind ropes and barriers and that sort of thing. But back then, hey, it's a priceless movie prop. Let's climb up on it. Let's just, have fun with these things. There wasn't the perceived value of the artifacts that we have today. You can take a tour, and if you're lucky, you might see an actor. This is a fellow named Frank McGrath. He was one of the secondary cast members of a series called Wagon Train. And these were the little dressing rooms and bungalows and offices that people got. And if you were up enough in the pecking order, you got a little cart that you could ride around in, so you could go between here and your set and not have to walk all the way around. But that was part of the thrill that they talked about. This is a real movie studio. You can come out and see real movie stars. And I'll talk about a little later when I first went out to Universal with David Hasselhoff, which was an interesting day. But this is a sort of view you'd see. We're up at the top end of the lot. The lot, as people may know, has the back lot down below, and then upper lot where a lot of the tour operations are done. We're looking out across the back lot. Way off to the left-hand side, you can see the buildings of the Warner Brothers studio back over there. And we're going to be taking a tour through a lot of these areas. Between the upper and lower lots, they had a section that they put in called Prop Plaza. They started realizing that, hey, this tour in a year is really exploded. People are taking off, and they want to do something more than just come in the commissary. So we have to give them a place to go and see movie things. So they went off and started putting different props up here. You can see a P-51 Mustang. Matter of fact, I think I have a bad picture of it here. Yeah, this poor plane sits there. Today, this plane would, if you were able to pick up a P-51 Mustang, would go for about $1.5 million to $2 million. Back then, it was, hey, just climb up, look in and, climb in the plane, have a great time. So a lot of things have changed over time, but it was very interesting. It was a very hands-on sort of experience. Take all these old cars, put up a sign, and you've got yourself instant movie prop. I love how they've very carefully made sure the cars don't roll by putting, very stylistic rocks under the wheels. And this was built as the very first attraction built for the studio. You got in this car and you hit a button, and the background of the barn scene there rolled around, And if you had a home movie, you could watch your family driving this car, and the scenery would go racing around. So this is again Universal's first custom-built attraction for the theme park. And again, more props, old cannons, just all sorts of things they would haul out to keep people entertained. Uh, Great fun, styrofoam or foam rubber rocks that you could move around. Uh, Up here at Prop Plaza, they had their first little Western stage show. People may remember for years things where the bad guys would come shoot out with the good guys out in front of the saloon or whatever. So this was at first up at Prop Plaza. It was later moved to the main tour section of the lot, but you could come in and watch the shootouts go and the fights with knives and all that sort of thing. And they would take you through a dressing room of a star. Often in the years I was there, it was supposed to be Lucille Ball's dressing room. You wondered how much she ever used it or whatever, but they let you wander through here. Or you could actually, back in these days, walk onto an actual soundstage. And this was the Munsters, Grandpa Munsters' lab. So you could go and walk around. You could go to the Munsters' kitchen. You could wander through the Munsters' bedroom. You could sit in Grandpa's electric chair, the organ that Lily Munster would play. It was very interesting. They thought nothing about bringing people in there. Today, you think everybody would be swiping stuff off there, or damaging things. But this went on for the first 2 years of the studio until 1966. At that point, the union said, no, enough of this. You're not paying the actors to be part of this. You're bringing them in. You're letting everybody walk around. Watch them as they're filming. Again, they were told to be quiet. Somebody would laugh. Somebody would sneeze. Ruining the take. The artists were getting mad. They were also upset they weren't getting paid. Universal's making money off of bringing in and watching them to do the Munsters, and the Munster crew wasn't getting anything. So in 1966, they stopped the on-set tours and visits. And that caused Universal to need to step up the extra things that they had added over time, such as the collapsing bridge or the doomed glacier, things that we'll be taking a look at. They also had a Herman Munster figure strap there that you could look at. Then the major part of the tour at this point in time was going out on the trams out in the back lot. They had the tour guides were out there describing what was going on. Folks may recognize the fact that here a lot of the buildings are only one story. Well, it's too expensive to build, 5, 6, 8, 10-story building. So you build the ground level and then you put the upper levels up on it with matte paintings and special effects. When I worked at Warner's, we were doing a show, The Adventures of Lois and Clark, one of the Superman remakes. And we did it all digitally. As a matter of fact, we had a guy that was really great, and if you were nice to him, he would digitally insert you in one of the windows, and you could watch real quick as Superman flew by. Well, back in these days, we didn't have the digital technology. We just had matte paintings or other things that were done. But again, most of the buildings are 1, maybe 2 stories tall, and it's just not economical to build a skyscraper or anything out there. But some of these sets have been, here's from the 1930s. They have been built for movies like The Hunchback and Notre Dame. I don't know how many people just recently watched a series that had been on a couple of years, The Good Place. Ted Danson and others. They use this whole area extensively. So if you look around this area, as you go through different shots of it, you can see that, oh, this is where they had all the yogurt shops and everything else that was in that series all the time. Now, a lot of the sets, just to put it in perspective for people, are not the ones from the 1930s anymore, because Universal, unfortunately, has had a habit of burning down. So they've had at least 5 major fires since the 1960s at Universal. And at one point in time, we'll wipe out Spartacus Square. Another fire will come by and take out the street right here. Another one will take out Courthouse Square. Well, one of the things they've done is they've maintained all the designs and the blueprints for these things, and they'll go and build them back, both because of the tour business, but also they do continue to use them for filming. And it's very frequent that you can recognize some of these shots in different shows. Yeah, it shows like It Takes a Thief with Robert Wagner, constantly shot overseas, supposedly. I think they did the pilot up in Expo 67 in Montreal, and everything else, every country he ever went to was out here in the Universal back lot. And you had, again, for the fellow that's on the the call today, there was a tour guide. He'll probably recognize how you would tell people bad jokes. You would show them things like this or the next one and talk about, hey, we've taken you all the way from California to New York's Wall Street. So bad jokes. But again, we're going to take a look around. We're going to be back in 1965, taking the tour around, and let Irv in here. I know him. And it was interesting. 1965 was a year of transition for McHales Navy. You can see the jungle compound set that they had here, where they were supposedly on the island of Taratupa. But midway through the year, they decided they would be moving the locale of the series to Italy. So here we have McHale still doing some filming on Taratupa. You can see one of the two PT boats that they used for filming on the back lot here in the island setting. And then just over here, all of a sudden, there's another PT boat in what becomes a small Italian village. So they actually had 3 PT boats for McHale's Navy, one that they ran around on the ocean and got all the high-speed footage, and 2 of them that were here on the lot. They weren't actually real PT boats. They were British boats remade to look like PT boats, but you could come and see this sort of thing being done. Taking the tour again, we're up in the tram, the High Falls area, all man-made waterfall. It's a 20-foot waterfall, and the water can roll all the way down through the stream bed out into the lake here. You can see up at the very top of the picture, housing, and that's how close the real world protrudes onto Universal Studios. These people are living in real houses, not movie houses. And about 15, 20 years ago, Universal had a plan to develop this entire area, basically pave over everything you see here. You can imagine the neighbors up there were not at all happy about having, an entertainment venue that close. They were able to come to the compromise, and luckily, Universal management came to its senses that you can still film in some of these sets and do things, and once you pave them over, you've lost them forever. And again, another view of the waterfall area. And looking at it again, across the back lot, way in the background is Disney. You can see the building smack dab in the center of St. Joseph's Hospital. The Disney Soundstage is just to the right, Warner Brothers in the middle, and Universal right here. Never did I think when I first came out to California I would have worked at all 3 of those studios, but funny how life does things. We're looking down, Prop Plaza again, the back lot area, and right behind it, the golf course. Again, very much a pocket of made-up movie silliness, and the civilization all surrounds it. Then you had cavalry forts. You had all sorts of things. So great thing to see back at this time, 1313 Mockingbird Lane, the Munster House. And this was built as, I don't remember all the names of all the different movies things were originally built for, but this had been another house built for another movie originally. And they came and decorated and added the things of the dead plants and the heavy looking wrought iron fences or whatever. So in 1965, to actually be able to go home and tell your friends you had seen the Munster House, that was really cool. And they had displays that you could walk into on a converted soundstage. You could see the creature from the Black Lagoon. You could go into lunch again in the commissary, and this was a big thing. Go in and see the stars, and this is what it all started. After a while, the popularity became so big that they didn't take you in here anymore, and now it becomes a big thing to get to know somebody will take you in. So we're going to hop up to 66. We're driving along to put yourself in perspective. If you were going to be going up to the studio today from Lancashire Boulevard, you'd be going up the hill. Looks a little different, doesn't it? Barren as could be. And they did different things at this point in time. They had some productions they had built the props and moved them for and started putting signs up. So the Warlord Tower was not built in its original spot. They would take it, disassemble it, and move it over. But they started seeing the value of saving movie sets and bringing them in here for the tour. Decorate the sound stages with signs. I'm sure we had a lot of fans here of the Gene Arthur show, and I'm sure everybody's looking to collect the entire DVD Blu-ray set of Pistols and Petticoats. I have to be honest, I have no idea what those shows were, but started decorating the sound stages, putting the signs up, and it became free advertising as people were coming along, seeing the show, to go home and think about it. And as you went around the lot, there were just all sorts of these bits and pieces of old sets around. Some of them would be recognizable. Lots of them are just total things, walls, jail doors, old fountains or whatever. And the tour guides would try to explain how the whole thing was done. fleets of old vehicles. Again, the Munster House still real popular in '66. And again, these trams were called glamour trams. Hollywood being a real great thing, an image and everything. You get on the glamour tram, take your trip around. And Prop Plaza again. Now, McHale's Navy is over, so they decided that they would again reuse the asset, take one of the PT boats, stick it up here in Prop Plaza. And I don't know if it got damaged on the way up there or once it was there, but you can see it's certainly not seaworthy anymore. And it also kind of shows you how Hollywood magic is. It looks so great on the screen. You see McHale and his Navy running around on this PT boat full of depth charges. Well, here you can see the depth charges are actually just 50-gallon oil drums strapped down to the back that would never do anything. But again, this was a great fun. People had just seen this for the last 5 years on television, and to be able to come up and touch the McHale's Navy PT boat was really kind of cool. And again, play more with your foam rubber rocks, have some fun. And this was what a lot of people came for. The fact that you actually see real filming being done from the tram as you went by. So they stopped down the road. You could watch the filming going on, the crowds going on. Again, another view down at Prop Plaza as the tour went on. The fellow that's going to talk during Q&A actually had the job of at this fake snowfall of shoveling up the snow that came down and getting it back into the system that would have it fall down. But people were fascinated by fake snow. But you could look at these props, a new way, instant reducing picture. You could go and take a picture. Over time, they for some reason they started with a lot of these props that when the studio first opened. Over time, they ended up buying a lot of the props that were used in the Irwin Allen production of Land of the Giants. So Prop Plaza for years was the place to go for giant chairs, telephones, pencils, all sorts of things. '67, the PT boat, as I said, there were two of them. One was at the back lot that was in bad, Prop Plaza was in bad shape. This other one was still parked out there in seemingly better shape. And again, you might be able to watch them being filmed. So we're in our tram, we come along, and hey, they're shooting an episode of The Virginian. So we have a lady and man out in the boat, and they're going for a ride, and the film crew out there filming. And if you're lucky, wow, we can see a real actor. This is Doug McClure, one of the stars of the show. And this was, again, big excitement for people to come by because a lot of these actors would actually come up to the tram and talk to the guests and everything while they were in between segments, do autograph signing, and it was a real thrill for people to come and be able to say that they had met a real star. So fun stuff. So '68, again, they started moving other things in, the T-33. I'm an airplane nut, as people may know. So I see these things, and I've tried to research where some of these planes came or went to. But over the time, they had painted some false registration numbers on it. And when you look it up, there was no such plane with that tail number. But they had a wagon here in the back from the war wagon with John Wayne. That's the one, the cylindrical greenish wagon kind of in the center. You had the jet there, stagecoach ride. You could sit up here. They were very smart. They would drop you off at Prop Plaza, and they had a snack bar up there. When I worked at Universal, Prop Plaza had been abandoned. They were no longer using it. It was just a very big empty area to go sit, relax, wander through, and think about what had been up there. But it gave you some fantastic views of the San Fernando Valley. Stagecoach, same as the car ride we saw earlier, that the background would go around. Stagecoach had so many people climb it over time that it eventually wore out, but it had become so popular that they replaced it with another one that was not an actual movie used prop, but another more heavy duty one built for the show. Looking down at the back lot, there's the Universal house. I'm sorry, the Psycho House, and we'll take a look at that a little bit closer. Hong Kong Harbor, now they've decided to start jazzing up the entertainment part of it. So they put in a submarine that's just going off screen on the left and a destroyer. And they had a battle that every 20 seconds the destroyer would shoot at the submarine, and you could they encourage you to time it and watch as the splash of the shots went off. They now started building a bigger stunt show because it was becoming more and more popular. Again, this is not as big as it became. You can see there's no chairs for people to sit in. It was a shorter show. You just came, stood, and watched it, and watched people get beat up and shot. And again, giant props, big thing at Prop Plaza for many years. And if you were lucky, you might meet a movie star. Here is Al Munster, Grandpa Munster, or Al Lewis, Grandpa Munster from the Munsters, and he's out up at Prop Plaza, and he's got a pen in his hand, very happy to sign autographs. And you can imagine it was a big thrill for folks to go home and tell him that they had met him. We're going to hop up to 71, driving around. One of the neat things about taking the tour was there were always all sorts of props that were stuff off to the side. Old jungle huts. In another scene from this, they had an ape hanging from a tree. This train station still there. Over the years, you would see it decorated as the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad, the Penn Central Railroad, the New York Central. Again, trains real easy. They come throw an extra placard on the side of it, and the train didn't move or anything. But if you wanted to simulate it, you have steam popping up, people standing at the station waving goodbye. And you can see the Psycho House here is in pretty sad shape at this point in time. And it's not too many years after the film was done. Nothing in the back of it, just an empty shell of a house. And this is basically what happens with movie studios over time, that you don't put money into it, because if there's no money to be made from it, why do you bother doing anything with it? So you end up leaving the sets sit there, rot, and then when somebody else wants to come by, they get to pay to restore the prop. So nobody was filming Psycho movies at this time, and it was sitting up there looking a lot worse for the wear. Another kind of neat attraction they had here, this submarine would come cruising across the lagoon, and it would fire a torpedo, and it would hit the ground just as the tram got there. So a big thing of water goes splashing up. It was really interesting. Back when I worked there, we would come down to this lake for a break. There's a employee snack bar not too far from there. And I had bought a container of popcorn one day. We were just walking across the studio and got down. No, it was French fries. Not that it really matters, but I had some extra French fries for my lunch. And we went down to the lake and threw some French fries in. And I'll tell you, the fish that live in this lake are the most voracious eaters I think I've ever seen outside of an alligator farm. I mean, unbelievable. I don't know what there is for them to eat in the normal world, but my buddy Kevin and I would go down there all the time and just throw the French fries and popcorn and stuff in there. And just amazing how these fish were hungry. Off to the left of this was the area that they used for the creature from the Black Lagoon. They did most of the underwater filming in Florida because the water is much cleaner. But then they did scenes of it here back in the back lot. But I'll tell you, don't ever fall in that water, because those fish will pick your bones clean. 1974, the poor PT-73 is really looking bad now. Most of the hull is in sad shape. And again, they would haul these things out, use them, and after a point in time, when they get to the point of no return, they would trash them. But back at this period of time, Universal also did something else that was kind of different. Besides taking the backlot tour, they would offer photo days. So they would let photographers come in, and they would have models posing around the lot, and you could come in and take pictures of them for a certain extra fee. And it was a great thing if you were a photographer or a movie buff, because you could go anywhere you wanted on the studio at that point. And this pictures people have taken from the tops of various places where, today they would never, ever let you go up there. You'd probably fall and kill yourself. But again, a great way to go and get a lot of details of the fountains, that sort of thing. Looking down again at the Psycho House, most of the time this area is absolutely totally empty, but they were doing a movie where they needed a Western town. So you built a whole Western town that circled around it. You can see they threw some jungle huts for storage in over there on it. Again, most of the time this area is empty. You need something, you build it, gets in the way, you tear it down, build something else. Now this one, I actually happen to know the actual date that these pictures were taken, because it was the first time I went to Universal. Was out here, had just come out, moved out for Disney, and came out for a tour, and went, and this was one of the things they'd added at the time, screen test theater. They were able to do shots that would take, in this case, they were doing the TV show Emergency, and you would have people picked out of the crowd, and you would put them in a costume, and then they would simulate that they were filming them. The guy on the left has a video camera, and you could see the monitors up above. The guy on the right actually did film it, and you could go off and buy a 8mm film of yourself inserted into the production, and a audio track on a cassette tape that came with it. I have one of myself somewhere from Airport 77. And this was a great thing. So you could come up and watch all this filming being done. You could go back and watch the stage show, the stunt show. By now, they've gone to a whole big theater at the main area. It's no longer up at Prop Plaza. And just shooting. It was very interesting. I realized early after I moved out here that everybody I knew from the East Coast in winter wanted to come to California, and everybody wanted to go for a tour of Universal Studios. So in my first couple of years out here, I don't know how many times I went to Universal. I don't know how many pictures I have of people getting blasted with shotguns or falling off buildings. But after a while, I realized it was a lot easier to drop them off and tell them, call me when you're done, I'll come and pick you up. Because you can only see the same stunt show, after the first 20 times, it really wears on you a little. This is a kind of interesting attraction. The movie Earthquake had come out, and they were very apropos after last night's earthquake that we had out here. They had a thing about this was an avalanche, and these boulders all came rolling down the hill. They ran into a giant trough that you don't see here. The machine took them back up to the top of the hill. And it's interesting because I share these pictures with other, studio fans, that sort of thing. And it seems I seem to have the only picture that anybody has found so far of these rocks rolling down the hill, because every picture that somebody puts on a blog about Universal with a short-lived avalanche ride, it turns out to be mine. You could go onto Soundstages now. Again, they no longer took you on a working soundstage thing with the actors at, but they recreated some of them. In some cases, they took the actual sets that they had used for a show that had just ended production, or in other cases, they duplicated it on a soundstage. So we're on the set now for Ironside. People maybe remember the show with Raymond Burr, detective, wheelchair bound in San Francisco, and this was his loft. And the major part of the tour again continued to be going out on trams out on the back lot. Brownstone Street in New York, and again, all these things have burned down, been rebuilt over time. Again, houses have been redone. Munster House was, take off a lot of the stuff that made it look as bad as it would be, but they would certainly tell you as you went by. For the people that maybe have taken the tour guide would always tell you, so much of Universal's been saved over the years, including this old bridge. We can't go there anymore because it's, you can see it's all fallen down. And the bus driver would go renegade, and he'd take you over there as the tour guide would plead, please don't do it. You get out on the thing, it would collapse, lurch, threaten to throw you into the water, and then would all reset. So this was where they started spending money and turning it from just a tour into a theme park. It was actually interesting. I was reading last night that Universal Studios is now the 15th most popular theme park in the world by visitor volume, which is pretty interesting when you consider that, each of the Disney parks down in Florida is considered a different park. So the studio is a different park than the Animal Tour, etc. So they're not doing too bad. I think they get a pretty good number of people going through there every year. And again, big part, just drive around, look at all these crazy props, things left over. So here we have old spaceships and who knows what else. And they had introduced the tour now for, went out and visited Amity Island. So Jaws had been a big popular thing. And this poor fisherman's out there, and there's the orca in the back, and what's going to happen to him? And of course, Bruce the shark jumps up. And over time, it's interesting. You can look at the pictures and see how they made the shark more realistic with different sets of teeth, or how much he snapped at the tram. Tour guides might tell you how many people managed to lose their cameras over the side as this thing came jolting out of the water. One thing that was interesting was when the movie Jaws was filmed, they sold off the boat that had been used for it and went off and didn't think much about it. Then somebody had the bright idea of, hey, wouldn't this be great to bring the orca back here and stick it on the back lot? Yeah, we sold it off. Well, evidently the guy they sold it to made quite a bit of profit in selling it back to them so they could bring it out here and put it on display. If I'm correct, I believe the orca sadly has rotted away over the years and is no longer with us, but it was great to see it. And again, the house up in the hill, they've now restored it a bit, not filming anything up there, but realizing it was a valuable movie prop to have people look at. We had one of our guys had a picture down below when they did a sequel to Bates Motel that they built down there. And again, they always told horrible jokes on the tours. So I'm going to tell one now. Do you know what links the hotel to the house? A psychopath. Ah, I can see some people groaning. Sorry. Now this was interesting. They were doing a Bob Hope special, so they put a sign up here, Hope's Bank. I have a whole bunch of pictures of this particular building over the years as a opera house for the Denver Opera House, all sorts of different odds and ends that they would do it. So a lot of these buildings just came out, threw a different sign on there, and went on your way. Hopping up to 78. My wife will not like this one because she does not like costume characters that come up. But Frankenstein, the Mummy, a couple others would come out here and greet you or try to scare you as you were getting on your glamour tram. You could go to Prop Plaza, again, giant telephone from Land of the Giants in the back, a cell with rubber bars you could bend to show how strong you were. And famous attraction that's out there, we've all seen the flash flood that comes racing down the Mexican village. I had in the pictures I was going to show, but I ran out of space to put them in today. You can see all the mechanism of how the tree falls down and how the rest of it works. Because when I worked there, I could walk through the back lot, take all the pictures I wanted when the tram wasn't right there. And this is, again, where the whole tour thing started. This is a part of the set called 5 Points, Texas, because you have 5 different streets all coming in. And back at that point in time, you could have multiple different movie crews because the sounds didn't matter. So straight ahead, you could have one crew shooting up a movie here. Off to the right, you could have another crew shooting up a movie there. They didn't interact or interfere with each other. Maybe they could borrow horses or something from each other, but this is where the crowd could sit and eat their chicken lunch as the filming went on. The Enterprise, very interesting. Most of us that are Star Trek fans, of course, the Enterprise is well known. But this was a riverboat that was built for a series starred Darren McGavin and young Burt Reynolds. And it was a riverboat that went up and down the Mississippi River called the Enterprise, and it was here on the back lot. Off to the left, you can see a church which was built, I believe, for To Kill a Mockingbird. And the church is about as wide and deep. It's probably a little less so than my office here, because again, it's at the end of the street. You need a facade. You come walking down, you go into the church, and then you cut into a soundstage. But over time, you could watch things like this Enterprise just get in sadder and sadder and sadder shape until finally it was gone. Again, different European streets, all sorts of things that can be filmed out here. If they want to redo a period piece, they can come and put dirt over the pavement and make it look like something shot years ago. 77, the poor guy is still getting eaten, but they've ended up putting more and more buildings out here along the lot to make it more and more interesting around the lake. There was always disputes about how much red they should have come shooting out of the water as he got eaten. And sometimes you got a special extra prize. Again, very wilderness area mentioned before, where all those houses up at the top of the hill, big empty area. So a lot of times you would see deer, other animals go wandering through the lot. And the Psycho House now, it's looking a bit nicer. It's had a porch put onto it and extra attractions. So something being done to use it. This was originally built for a series called Bristol Court. Here, the Sacramento Arms is looking a little worse for the wear, but it was a apartment complex built for this show. Full swimming pool, very nice looking area, and you could walk in there again, take a look around, and you'd swear it was a typical Southern California apartment complex. Kind of neat. Mentioned the battle, the submarine for 10, 15 years that destroyer kept chasing the submarine. They added the animal show in. This was a big thing. This was Fred from Beretta, or so they told you. To me, it could be any cockatoo, but they swore it was Fred, and Fred would come out and do various tricks for you and stuff. And it's just a couple shots. They didn't have actual dates from these from the 70s, but thought people might like to get a kick out of them. So again, giant props, all sorts of things. Oh, they did a tie-in for years with Walter Lantz, Woody Woodpecker. They had a display on how Woody was animated, that sort of thing. And again, big things that were all stuck out here. So somebody definitely had giant size stuff on their minds. And again, they changed over time the show. For a while, you could see Emergency being shot. Then, oh, let's do Adam 12 now. So we could go and put you in a fake police car. Oh, but we could still see celebrities. So here's Lloyd Bridges filming something out on the back lot. Again, another shot of them doing a fake episode of Adam 12. We're going to go real quick through the 1980s. This is a souvenir set of slides they had sold. I was trying to get the audio synced up to it. This came in an audio cassette, but the earthquake kind of threw me off last night. But again, this is how big the back lot is. So down at the 12 o'clock position, you have where all the sound stages are. You have the LA River, which is put in a concrete channel as a border off to the right. You have the golf club over there. But this is, again, all the fake buildings, all the facades and everything that were out here in the back lot. And again, you can see how big the lakes are and ponds, that sort of thing. They would swear you'd see stuff like this going on the tour. I can't imagine this was ever actually on the tour itself. But by now, we're no longer driving up and parking at the studio commissary walking in. It's become a full-fledged theme park, parking, ticket booths, all sorts of things. You walk in, you get on your glamour tram. It's going to take you for part of the trip, drop you off at the Prop Plaza. You're going to walk through it, buy yourself some snacks, throw some money into the Universal Piggy Bank, and then we're going to go and, again, see the rest of it. There is over in the center, the Burbank Studios that had been the Warner Brothers Studios. It was then a joint venture at this point in time. Columbia Pictures had sold their studio in Hollywood, moved in with Warner Brothers to form the Burbank Studios. While the time I was working there, Columbia moved back out, and we had a big ceremony about unveiling the fact that now said Warner Brothers again. So big thing in Hollywood history. This was, again, you walk on a soundstage and you see a recreated set. Here we happen to be visiting what they call the carriage house that Jamie Summers, the Bionic Woman, lived on. This was a big period of time for the Bionic craze. You could go onto a soundstage and they would show you how with your bionic arm, you could lift up an entire pickup truck. Or using strobe lights, they could show how you could simulate somebody jumping up over a barrier. And they would, again, go off into the back lot. Again, maybe you see some filming, maybe not. You go across the bridge would collapse, you'd all survive. Looking down at Prop Plaza from somewhere high above, again, giant everything. You could get wiped out in the tour at the Mexican Village. The tree has fallen down, the flooding has subsided, and it's about to reset. Oh, the submarine we saw earlier has just fired a torpedo. It's almost taken out the tram here, which is on its way to the Red Sea. So again, this is great props and everything they had done. Right beyond this bridge area was the Creature from the Black Lagoon filming area. And we can see that the water just kind of runs over the edge into the trough here that the tram goes through. And again, just examples. Take these buildings, put signs on it. You can make it a German village. You can make it a French village. You can make it basically anything by the sort of signage you put up. Going through 5 Points, Texas. Come on. Uh-oh, Runaway Train. This was one that was there for years. All of a sudden, the train would come out, blowing steam, whistle going, and would come crashing to a stop just before it hit the tram. Great fun. The Psycho House looking ominous up there on the hill. Bruce coming out, attacking everybody as the dock is collapsing, the tram's going. And again, I don't know how many of those cameras ever ended up in the water. There's actually a great spoof that they did years ago. I'll have to try to show that on another thing where they're taking the tour and it's Steven Spielberg's giving it. It's a classic, and I got it when I worked at Universal. It's really fun. But you'd go into the avalanche area, all this snow and ice and everything. And inside they had this giant tunnel that would rotate and it would give you this incredible feeling of vertigo, very strong inducing there. But it would show looking like the tram is falling. And in reality, the tram is actually not moving at all, but the building around you is moving. And they filmed episodes in here, The $6 Million Man, where he runs into Bigfoot in the middle of this glacier. And you could get your picture taken with a giant shark from Jaws. You could see, again, the submarine destroyer still at it. The World War Tower still there. The snow is still there, still going strong. And things, as I said, it changed over time. They kept updating things. So now we're doing a scene from Airport 77. You're on board Jimmy Stewart's 747. It gets hijacked, and everybody has to be rescued. So they would get people from the crew, the audience, dress them up and put them in these scenes. I got to be an air traffic controller, and I still absolutely remember my line. I want a full-scale air sea search rescue, and I want it now. So if Hollywood ever wants to do a remake, I'm all set. I have to find the 8mm film and the audio tape I have of me doing that. But I always knew I wanted to be an air traffic controller. And again, the animal control thing had gone bigger. It was no longer just Fred from Beretta, but they had all sorts of other trained animals that would come out there. A neat thing they did was they would bring people from the audience and say, hey, we'd like to make you up as as Frankenstein, the Bride of Frankenstein, or the Incredible Hulk. So this was just somebody taken out of the audience and let to ham it up. You still had the stage, the stunt show, big popular thing, and people still getting shot off the roof 10 times a day. And one of the things they did that was kind of neat was this guy would disappear into the quicksand, then he would pop up later on in the show. Back then, there was a big amphitheater. I don't know how many folks here may remember the Universal Amphitheater, but it was a very popular spot to go and see nighttime performances. We'll see another shot of that. And then Frankenstein Jr. saying, thanks for coming. We hope you had a nice day. So we're going to hop into 83, running quickly near the end. Again, taking the tour. Off to the side here, you see a Grumman Goose aircraft. And that was for a show, Tales of the Gold Monkey with Stephen Collins. Off to the left, the building there was Louis' Bar. If you remember it, they were supposedly set in some French island, French Polynesia. And it was a World War II thing, going off and getting involved with the Japanese. But again, this was the kind of neat thing that you could come and see these real sets and that sort of thing. So we're in the middle of the parting of the Red Sea, looking over at the Goose. The train, over time, got a little less energetic, and after a while wore out, and they took it out. But again, for folks that had not taken the tour, you can see how many of these buildings are just the fronts of buildings. Now, if you go to some of the buildings today, they've been moved over time. Colonial Street was all moved to another part of the lot. Different things, to accommodate filming. Again, Jaws, pretty neat little village out here. Victoria Station, people may remember it. Carol and I used to go there a lot. You could take a funicular tram from the parking lot up to Victoria Station. The whole gimmick there was that you could eat your steak dinner in train cars that were brought over from England. It was a really nice spot to go after work because Disney Studios are all maybe 4 or 5 miles away. Drive over here, take the funicular up, have nice dinner. They had free wine and free cheese crocks and crackers on the tables until they realized that they couldn't put that out the nights they were having Universal Amphitheater things because too many people would come, stuff themselves on free crackers, not bother to buy any drinks. So they ruined it for us. Now, 1984 is kind of interesting. I did a lot of writing for a magazine called Starlog, and one day they called up and said, hey, one of our writers is supposed to interview David Hasselhoff for about Knight Rider, and he's sick. Can you go over and interview him? And I said, who's David Hasselhoff and what is Knight Rider? And I had never heard of it. And they said, oh, it's a guy with a super-powered talking car, and here's his address. You got to get going. So now I go to meet this guy and interview him for a magazine, and I have no idea anything about it. There's no internet. I had no car phone to be able to even call my buddies on my way over to his house to say, what do you know about it? So I got there, and it was kind of crazy. They said, you'll know when you get to his house, it's the one with the 2 Trans Ams in the driveway. And I got there, and he was on the phone doing an interview with somebody in Japan, and I'm trying to listen to understand anything about it. Finally, it's my turn to interview him. And I have to say, he couldn't have been a nicer guy. Absolutely, in a 10 scale, he was a 10. But I didn't know what to ask him because I don't know anything about this show. So I said, okay, David, everybody's probably asked you the same old questions over and over and over, but pretend I've never seen the show. And we're in an elevator, and you've got 3 minutes before we get up to the top. Tell me why I would want to watch your show. What's it all about, and why would I want to watch it? And so I did the interview and did as much time as we could. And then he had to go do something else. And he said, hey, I'm practicing driving for the show out on Universal on Sunday. Do you want to come out with me when I do my driving? So I said, oh, okay, sure. And again, I've never seen the show. No idea what it's about, right? So I go out to Universal and I meet him and we go out driving, and I found out what driving in the kit is like as he's driving this thing around Universal Studios at incredibly high rates of speed. I mean, it was just a real eye opener. And it was really funny because at one point we came racing around the corner and he screeches to a stop. The car goes almost a 90-degree turn, dirt flying everywhere, and because the tram's going right across the road. So he jumps out and he goes over to the tram and he starts signing autographs. So I get out of the car and my knees were probably shaking, but I get out of the car and he's signing autographs like crazy, and I'm just standing there watching. And he's like, "Oh, so watch Knight Rider," and somebody says, "Oh, I've wanted to get your autograph for so long." And he says, "Well, my autograph's easy," but he points to me and says, it took me years to get this guy's. This is the guy you ought to be getting his autograph from." And all of a sudden, everybody's handing out their autograph books to get. So I don't know how many people today are saying, "Boy, I'm really glad I got a Bill Cotter autograph." But they put the Knight Rider car out on the back lot. This is, of course, a duplicate, but they had a guy that would sit here with a microphone that let him sound very much like the real Kit, William Daniels, that did it. I was asked to go out and get some pictures for the magazine of kids out in the car and do it. Oh, it's actually nice. I got a letter from the producer of the show that said it was the best article ever written about Knight Rider. So I was pretty happy how it all turned out. So again, they added, over time, you keep adding things, changing things. Battlestar Galactica, big science fiction fan. You went out there and the Cylons here kidnapped the tram, sent you into the spaceship here. Just like my earthquake picture, if you turn out to see a picture of the Cylons attacking the Universal tram, you'll always come across one or two of my pictures of them attacking us. And just all sorts of stuff you'd see, pictures of pieces of old models and boats and ships and everything. And you might use it someday, so throw it out back. We might rehab it. If not, it's something the tourists might like. Keep it contemporary. We have George Papard from the A-Team. As you went through the Red Sea, he was now there waving hi to you. I posted this online last night on a wrecked airplane group on Facebook, and it's amazing how many people are saying, "Oh, that's a PV5, a PV4Y, B-29, C-47," and people can identify each of these wrecks. To me, and again, they would not save the whole plane. They didn't need the plane; it wasn't going to fly. But if you want to have a picture of the pilots in the cockpit, you use the nose section and did it. To me, as an airplane nut, this is just horrible to see, but the Ark is still there. Again, great fun. We're going to hop into 88 real quick. E.T. had come out. This, again, done on a soundstage. They would use blue screen. The kid go out there, have the inserts, shots put in from the movie, so he would look like he was actually flying. They get involved, put people in space chutes, hang them from wires, let them interact with stuff behind them. Again, they kept going around with shows. I have no idea what Out of This World was, another show that I don't remember. Charles in Charge, I certainly remember the name. But again, free publicity. They added bigger stunt shows, the Miami Vice Action Spectacular, and they started making it more into a theme park. Again, so this was all stuff built totally for the theme park, never used for filming. Well, actually, they can use it for filming if they want, but this wasn't a movie set. It was built just to entertain people and to put shops in so they could buy more stuff as you went in and out of the theme park. And for everybody that says I miss the 80s, well, just remember the ladies. That was the hair from the 80s. So I don't know if you miss it or not. So let's look back at Universal over the years. Oh, we had one more picture. Where did it go? Come on. Oh, we got to come up with it real quick. Get down to it. Sometimes PowerPoint acts up. So there we go. When in Hollywood, visit Universal Studios, ask for Babs. It's become a big thing, and they did the movie Animal House, and they did Where Are They Now? And John Landis decided it'd be kind of fun to put a bit in there that one of the girls who was so high and snooty over the years at the college became a tour guide at Universal. And the legend has it that for years, if you came up to Universal Studios and asked for Babs, they would let you in for free. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. By the time I got there, Babs was no longer working there. But that was a look back. Hope it reminds folks of some of the things they saw over the years, and it takes you back to the days of the collapsing bridge and that. Again, for folks that are new, I will post this on YouTube, and all the other talks are from past weeks are there on the site. So let me get out of PowerPoint. Stop sharing screen. Some questions. Okay, so let's see what I have here. Okay. People. Terry Wilson, a wagon train was in that stunt show. Oh, okay. Few photos taken the next day after the 2008 fires. Okay, I'll take a look at that. Okay. A lot of it's just trying to ask people why they're trying to get in. And again, we're sorry that we had to keep people out in the waiting room. If you got in late or didn't make it in there, I'm sorry for that because of the Zoom bombing from the past. So if you want to add anything, questions, answers, if we haven't lost anybody, you can use the raise hand feature and I'll unmute you, or you can wave frantically and I'll unmute you. And we'd love to hear comments, suggestions, or reactions from the crowd.
I came in late. How bad was the earthquake last night?
The earthquake last night was a 4.5, and it was one scale said 4.6, the other said 4.8. It was enough that it sure as hell got my attention. As I mentioned at the very beginning, I was trying to edit a picture, and I was moving my mouse, and the mouse, my desk, and my chair, and everything were going in different directions. And it shook, and it was one of these ones that just kept shaking and kept shaking, shake a little more, die down, shake more. And then when it finally stops, your heart is beating so much that just trying to figure out, is it over or not? It was real noticeable.
Yeah, where was the epicenter at?
El Monte. It was about 40 miles from here, about 8 miles from my son, who called right after that and said, wow. Somebody asked me a question, a private one, about Desperate Housewives built a whole street of houses for the show. Yes and no. They took, and again, I have pictures of that in the later years. I just ran out of time because I don't like to make these things run too long. They used a street called Colonial Street, and what they did was they picked up the houses and moved them to a separate part of the lot. I think part of it, they were trying to use part of that land. It might have been where they built the Amblin Studios facility, but they moved some of the houses, and then they built some other houses just for the Desperate Housewives. So I have a bunch of pictures of all the houses with wisteria hanging off of them and that. But that was done after 88. Who else? Again, you can wave. You can use the raise hand feature. Now I see Ron Hamill's still there. Ron was a tour guide. Ron's having a snack. Maybe when Ron's finished with his snack, yeah, he's chewing frantically. So everybody look at Ron. Yeah, everybody do virtual CPR on Ron. And when Ron's available, Ron was a tour guide. He can tell you all the mistakes I made, and maybe he can tell you some of the bad jokes that they remember. So when he's available. Who else? Any thoughts of that from folks?
I'm ready.
Okay, go ahead, Ron.
No, I wasn't a tour guide. I was a park attendant.
Oh, okay.
I went around sweeping up popcorn and the like up on top of the hill. It was one of my first jobs when I moved to LA, because when I was out here in 68 on tour with my family, I said, someday I'll move to LA and I'll get a job at Universal.
Hang on one second. I'm going to ask you to unmute again. I muted everybody there, and because Derek was making noise. So sorry, Ron, if you'd unmute yourself and continue.
There.
Yeah.
And so I was a park attendant, and as I told you during this last week, I'm one of my jobs was to that snow machine. It was from a movie, and I forgot the name of the movie. That set was from a movie. And my job was to, once the snow emptied out of the big rolling thing, which I have a movie of it, I used to shovel it and put it back in. And the snow was filthy on the ground because it was always getting mixed up with popcorn and everything, whatever else was on the ground. And I just shoveled up. You couldn't take time to pick it out. So all that snow was dropping on people, and it was just the filthiest stuff.
Showbiz.
Snowbiz.
Yeah.
What's the thing?
You said you had accumulated some movies. Would you like to share those?
Yeah. Let me see. Share.
I think I need to make you a co-host here so that you can share your video. So 1 second. Yeah, you should be able to share your screen now.
Let me see. Desktop. Yes. And I think I mean, I haven't done this before, so go to Zoom. You just do it as, here we go. Can people see that?
Yep.
Black screen?
Yep, black screen and a go button. Okay.
Let me advance it through here. These are home movies I took. Could you see that right there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
These are home movies I took back in 1968, in July of 1968, when my family came out on tour. And it shows a lot of the things you were talking about.
Yeah, just let it play and people will probably enjoy it. Up, visitor's entrance. And feel free to add anything in, Ron.
Yep. My shots are very, I was not a great cameraman then. So my shots are all shaky but.
Hey, it's authentic. Hey, this is the same space capsule stuff I had.
Yeah. Leave It to Beaver House, then at Marcus Welby House.
When you share the screen, is it possible to make the images larger? It only uses up about a quarter of my computer monitor.
Mine.
I'm saying it pretty full size. If you switch to speaker view, or if you click on his name, you probably should get the whole thing. So look for Ron's image and click on it. I think you'll get the whole thing.
Didn't seem to make any difference.
Is everybody else seeing it large? Yeah. Okay. I don't know whatever setting. There's some settings on Zoom for how it goes.
There's the bench and there's the stagecoach.
Right.
That's Courthouse Square. That was
Back to the Future.
Well, way before that. Well, now here in a minute, you'll see there's a PT boat.
Yeah.
And then you'll see huts from there's McHales Island. And then there's the riverboat. And there's the European Village. And then up here is PT 73. European streets. There's the Spartacus Steps.
Yeah, it's so interesting when you see that reused for so many different movies.
Here's the submarine, and which I was rocking the camera to make it look like I was on a boat, but whatever. There's my sister in the snow. Little did I know that like 7 years after that.
Probably the same snow.
It probably was. It looked like it was. Here are, I'll advance this. This is 1986 stuff I shot in 86.
He's a boy from the city, and she is a child of the perfect, except for two things.
Studios, home of Columbia Pictures and Warner Brothers. Anything used on a set that are not nailed down, they range from paper books and pencils to priceless artwork and antique furniture. The warehouse we're traveling through covers over an acre. In here we keep over 5 million props.
5 million.
You want the same planets to look like they've been in a forest fire? We'll spray them with black vegetable dye, and they'll look like they've been burned to a crisp. Back to the Future. Here on the corner on my side is the diner from Back to the Future, where Marty McFly tried to get a tab. This park was a park with a war memorial in the middle of it. In the past, you got a good memory. This was the town that was terrorized by the little green guys.
Oh, King Kong.
And the oversized shopping cart is from The Incredible Shrinking Woman, which starred Lily Tomlin. The riverboat facade here was built originally for Mississippi Gambler, starring Tyrone Power, used again in Shenandoah with Jimmy Stewart, and for the Riverboat television series starring Eric McGavin. The lake here happens to be the entire Pacific Ocean. And you can make it look as real as possible. This was Paris, France, from Elbrook's History of the World, Part 1, episode of Moonlighting from 20th Century Fox Productions. She's out of the tram. Keep your arms, your legs, your heads, and your cameras inside of the tram. If you lean out in any way, a safety system here will keep
Here he
anything
comes.
interesting from happening. The shark's fin. Hey, Mr. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, we used to sit on the hill to the left of the tram, and nobody ever looked up at us on the hill as we'd watch down the visitors down below as the shark would attack.
That's that.
Great, thank you.
How do I unshare now?
Should be up at the top of the screen. There should be
yeah,
an unshare
up
button.
there.
Great,
There we go.
thanks. Yeah, Universal was a kind of fun spot to work, and you know, like I said, I took my son out there and drove around in carts, and Carol and I would go and wander around, but I didn't want to just, you know, go for years and years. I must find the spoof video that they did about the thing. Because like Steven Spielberg is on the thing, he goes, "Oh, watch out for the shark. Oh, the humanity." I mean, totally deadpan, and all these other famous directors are on the tram, and they're all just rolling their eyes, and it's great fun. So it was. And it was Seagram's had just bought the studio, so they were doing Seagram's product placement everywhere just to poke fun at that. So it kind of crazy. Anybody else thoughts on Universal? Great. Well, hope people enjoyed a look back at the way that it used to be. For next week, I was thinking of doing Expo 85, the Scuba World's Fair in Japan. Anybody interested in seeing Expo 85?
Sounds good.
Okay. Yeah, it was kind of interesting one. I'll go into more details next week, but I was in Japan, and they said, "Oh, what are you going to do for the weekend?" I said, "I don't know." And the guy said, "Oh, you know, if you wanted to, you could go out to the World's Fair." And I said, "The what?" You know, I had no idea there was a World's Fair right outside of Tokyo when I was there that particular trip. So I said, "Okay, yeah, so let's go. Where do you sell film around here?" So I had a lot of fun going to a World's Fair with, matter of fact, I went that night. Just say, "How far is it? I can go after dinner." So it was great fun. So appreciate folks joining, and it was, again, appreciate Ron sharing his memories there. And I hope you got the snow out of, or your sister got the snow out of the hair. And hopefully between now and next week, we will not have been invaded by giant locusts, flying monkeys, or anything else. I mean, it's like, wow, what is next between fires and you know, everything else? It's been one hell of a year.
Well, the mudslides come next in the fall.
Yeah, that's the trouble. Everything burns, and we're very lucky. The air out here has been terrible, but the fires have been about 40 miles from us, and luckily right now burning away. But the smoke was terrible on this past Monday and Tuesday. You couldn't even see the sun. We were supposed to have a neighborhood watch meeting in the park outside our house, and we had to take it to Zoom because it was just too. I mean, we couldn't put people outside and the stuff. It was just miserable. And then you know, it was just nasty the entire week this way. Ron, you need to unmute yourself or something. Yeah, go ahead.
When I got back from the tour and when I got back from the California vacation we took in 1968, I'm from Massachusetts, and I went to the local store, the department store, and there was a Castle 8mm film called A Tour of Universal City Studios. It was silent, and it was, you know, it was a 200-foot reel. And I went in there and I ordered it because I was so like concentrated on Universal Studios at that point. It was like, oh, I have to get back to Universal Studios. And so I ordered it and I waited and waited, and it was just me coming out of, I guess, California, and I was waiting forever, and I kept calling the store every day. Is it here yet? No, Ron, it's not here. Is it here yet? No, Ron. For a month I did that, and finally it showed up, and I still have it to this day, and it might be somewhere on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll have to go look for it. I have the equipment here to transfer 8mm, and I need to get around to doing that because I have so much of stuff like that. And somewhere I have back in the 80s boxes and boxes of Betamax tapes that I had a home beta movie, the big backpack and all that. I've got, you know, somewhere I'll find the time yeah, to do it. So, but it's great. Yeah, it is. Like I said, it was fun. I went to Universal. I was supposed to be there for a 6-week project, and I stayed about 3 years. And I ended up going and working for them over in Paris and London, doing some other stuff. So it was really great because all of a sudden at lunch hour, what do? You take your little electric cart and you go ride around and you take some pictures. And, you know, like I said, those fish in that lot I mentioned, that lake, they were just unbelievable. We always used to have fun too. The trams would go right by the snack bar, and you know everybody's looking. And we realized if you put your hand up and went like that, everybody just went insane trying to figure out who's that. So you could instantly force people to take your picture just by going like that. So we'd then take our French fries. You know, we'd get as my wife knows, I love cheeseburgers. So I get a cheeseburger, fries, an extra order of fries. We'd walk over and feed those fish, and it was just. I don't know how on earth they've lived in there that many years. There must be a lot of other employees that go there and feed them French fries or something. But it was the first time I threw something in there was the water was boiling. It was great fun. So, Don?
Yeah, you may have answered this earlier. I was distracted a few times during the presentation. But when they added the theme park to Universal Studios, did that shorten the studio tram tour ride, or is it still the same length it always was?
No, it's pretty much gotten shortened over time. Basically most people are going up there now for the 3D rides, you know, Harry Potter World, you know, that sort of stuff. The movie ride is still there, but to be honest with you, kids today, you know, showing them a building to say that John Wayne once walked down this street is not of any interest to kids of today. You know, I mean, and the tour guides would always tell you, oh, all these buildings were built at 7/8 scale, so that all the cowboys like John Wayne look bigger. And did everybody know he actually rode a Shetland pony? I mean, like I said, I took this tour so many times I could give it the tour of the 70s or 80s, but there's just not the big excitement for it. So if you walk down and this is where the Hunchback of Notre Dame was filmed, who cares? So the studio tour part has gotten to be much shorter, and now it's go on the Jurassic Park ride and have the dinosaurs spit at you, and go on the the mummy ride, or do whatever they have. I haven't been back to Universal about 5-7 years, something like that now. Now that I have to pay for it again, it's not as appealing as it used to be. But it was actually interesting when I worked there. They had a thing about telling the theme park employees not to walk into the motion picture side of it, and another sign telling the motion picture people not to walk into the theme park side of it, because they wanted to make sure we paid their admission. But yeah, the whole studio tour part, like I said, the odds of you coming across filming and stuff like that these days are probably pretty small. And part of it also is because right now everybody has a camera, and they would take a picture, incredibly high quality picture, and post it online. And they don't want everything to be seen or shots going out, so they tend to keep you away from the filming more than they used to do. So
yeah.
How does the Universal tour compare with, say, the Warner Brothers tour?
Totally different experience. The Warner Brothers tour is a very small one. There are no collapsing bridges or anything like that. You basically go on a small tram. They go around, talk to you, walk onto some of the sets. Again, they can go onto the sets, but not when the actors are there. So back when they were shooting, things like Friends, they would take you on the set and walk you around. They do now have a component where they have a museum set there. We went to a cast member preview of it a couple of years ago, where they have, the costumes from the Superman movies or Harry Potter props. And they have an interesting thing with forced perspective where you can look like a giant handing a cup over to your wife who's sitting there, and then she changes places at the other end of the table and she becomes the giant. So the Warner tour is more of a how are movies made tour. They do go out on the Warner Brothers back lot. You do have the ability to, there's the house that they did in Gremlins. Here's Cabot Cove for Murder, She Wrote. So if you are a movie aficionado, I would really, that probably take both if you have the time. But if you only had a chance to take one of the two tours, I'd recommend Warner Brothers as the true movie studio tour these days, where Universal's more of the theme park experience.
Yeah,
I don't say that just because I get a pension from Warner Brothers and I want the tours to go up.
my wife and I took both tours last couple of years at the end of one of our Route 66 trips, and I was amazed. The Universal tour, it's half of it is, even if you're on the movie tour, it's still a theme park attraction, right? You're going through a King Kong thing and a Fast and Furious thing, and much less emphasis placed on the sets. Whereas the Warner Brothers, like you said, you go see all the old sets, and the museum at the end is fascinating, except especially that was Jack Warner's phone book.
Phone book, yeah.
It has they have it open to a page that lists Cecil B. DeMille and Walt Disney and all these. It's fascinating to read through. So yeah, the second one, if you're the Warner Brothers tour, is much more interesting for movie buffs, I think.
Yeah, it's a lower pace tour, and they offer, I think, a short one and a long one. I think they have two different prices for how many hours you spend at it, but it is a good tour. The dog didn't like that comment. But yeah, the Warner, I mean, for a while there, I showed when I did Vanished LA a few weeks ago, Paramount had a tour, Fox had a tour, because everybody saw that, hey, Universal's making money hand over fist with this stuff. But, most of them didn't put the money into it to keep it up. And for Universal, they kept expanding and expanding and expanding. So it's become a big thing. And then, of course, they have Universal Studios Florida as well, which doesn't have anywhere near the same, component. They don't have a real back lot sort of thing. But it's still, for a movie geek, for me, when I go there, it's still great fun. My daughter liked Universal, and we got season passes for a while. And they have all the rides up at the top for the Minions or, whatever the different films are, Rugrats back in the days and that. And, it's still popular, and they have their season passes, as you can imagine, are far, far, far cheaper than Disney season passes. But again, I got kind of burned out. When you take so many people there, you work there for years, you see it. I got to go back when this pandemic's over and see what they've changed again. Okay, and one thing I remember from the back lot was the burning house. Yeah, they have I must have missed too many pictures of that. I think it was in one of them. They had a facade of a burning house, a colonial type mansion, and it burns like crazy. And when you drive by it, you see there's absolutely nothing to it other than the front of the building, the propane jets behind it, and great fun. And again, it was, to me, I remember my folks had first gone to it. My mom came back about, oh my God, I saw the stars from McHales Navy, and I really, really wanted to get out here. So when I came out, as I mentioned, when I was out, I started working for Disney in August. So I'd been out in July house hunting, trying to look for places, that sort of thing. Have to go see Universal. And I was actually staying at the Universal Sheraton Hotel. So it was real easy just to go and take the tour. So I was finally glad to be able to go see it. Well, thanks all for joining. I hope everybody has a nice week, a quiet week, a earthquake-free week. And we will see you next week. Oh, Glenn, were you waving by, or did you have a comment? You're waving by. Okay. No comment. Okay, so unmute yourself if you would.
Oh, there. No, I just put in the comments down below. You didn't see. I just was wondering if you had anything on the old MGM studio backlot.
You know, I have a very few set of pictures on that. When I first got out here, they were still tearing it down, and I went over there and climbed through a hole in the fence and got into the very end of it. Unfortunately, I didn't have a camera with me at the time. So I did have some pictures I bought from people on Facebook, sorry, eBay over time. And I just bought some more this past week. So in the future, the lady was like, oh, I can't get you the pictures right now because the hurricane's coming through my neighborhood. So I hope it came through okay. But yeah, I do have some pictures of the back lot of MGM where they were shooting combat and some of the other things out there. So I'll try to put those up at some point in time.
Well, if you don't have a lot, maybe you could do a show on all of the studios, you know, show some of the things at Disney and Warner's. And I would really be interested in your whole career. Every time you get on here, I learn about another job you've had.
Yeah, I've had a hell of a time holding a job. It's you know, it's really funny. Back years ago, my college did a alumni magazine article on me, and they were like, how did you get from being a nuclear weapons engineer to a vice president at a movie studio? And I said, yeah, I'm still trying to figure that one out. So you know, just, I tell you, being in the right spot at the right time. Like the thing with Universal is it came out about really weird. I had worked at Disney, I worked at Warner Brothers, and I had gone into independent computer consulting, and I was doing a whole variety of stuff. And this one guy called me up and said, Universal's got a guy in their network center that's just not working out, and he's got a real problem. Could you go and mentor this guy and try to, you know, turn his career around? So I went over there, and I was supposed to be there for 6 weeks. And this guy he loved being a fireman. He loved about, oh man, I fixed this problem. I put out the fire. And I said, yeah, but you caused it. You did this bad thing. And you know, and I remember I took him out. We walked out of the building, and I pointed up to the top of the hill, and I said, what's at the top of the hill? And he said, well, the studio tour. I said, right. So this past weekend, when you took down the entire network for the entire company, I know you worked all weekend, 48 hours nonstop to fix it, but the entire weekend, we couldn't sell any tickets up there because we couldn't take any credit cards. We couldn't sell any T-shirts. We couldn't sell. We literally, people were like, I don't have any money. I need food. I need to feed my daughter. Here, have a free cheeseburger. I said, do you realize what you cost this company? No, it was just one of those things. So he did not accept the mentoring, and my job became find and hire his replacement, and then build out network centers for Universal in Paris, and then shut their one down in London. And as I said, I ended up being there 3 years. I went there 6 weeks and stayed 3 years. Never expected it. So just kind of funny how things go. And I'm very lucky. I never ended up at Fox or the others on the other side of the hill. All these other studios were within, you know, a easy drive of my house. So worked out well. But
you've had a fascinating career.
Well, someday when I grow up, I'll find out what I want to do. So yeah. Yesterday I had my LAPD hat on, was doing that. So I got to help a stranded motorist, and life is good. You keep busy.
Right.
Well, again, hope everybody has a good weekend. We'll see you next week for Expo 85.
Thanks again, Bill. Thanks again.
Thanks much. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.